The pigeons are plump in Trafalgar Square, hand-fed by visitors who flock to the heart of England's capital city, London. It's an exciting place to be, steeped in history but throbbing with life. Buckingham Palace, home of the royal family for more than 150 years, guardian of tradition, rich in ceremony, but the sentries outside Buckingham Palace are real soldiers, Queen Elizabeth's personal bodyguards. The royal household orchestrates the pomp and pageantry that the English love and visitors envy. The spectacle of the big occasion never fails to draw the crowds. London would be an infinitely poorer place without the splendor and dignity of its royal ceremonial. Patriotism, ancient buildings, old crafts and customs, superb scenery, they're all part of a fascinating country. You'll see as we take a journey to discover England. The English need no excuse to hold a ceremony. It's part of the fabric and ritual of London life. For sheer colour and majesty, nobody does it better. Even the police, the celebrated British bobbies, enter the carnival spirit. No English pageant is complete without the Blues and Royal, the household cavalry. There's something about the glinting breastplates and helmets, the creak and jingle of harness, the movement of the proud horses that stirs the emotions. Scenes such as these are as popular as they were generations ago. Horses are one of Queen Elizabeth's great loves. She's an authority on breeding, and for her, riding in a horse-drawn carriage is a pleasure. The Queen has reigned since 1952, her consort Prince Philip by her side. She's ensured that the monarchy remains strong, a symbol of the country's stability. The Queen continues to top opinion polls as the most popular member of the royal family. Oxford Street, London's shopping mecca. Shoppers mingle with friendly bobbies on foot patrol. World-famous stores are to be found in fashionable Knightsbridge. The Queen shops here. It's a bustling city, the workplace for more than 4 million people, and where old-style transport moves in harmony with distinctive black London taxicabs. Street stalls add a splash of colour, and for those who want to sample the sights, why not from an open-top double-decker bus? You won't know his name, but he's one of the most photographed faces in London. He's a member of the Household Cavalry at Horse Guards Yard facing Whitehall. The guard changes at 11 o'clock each morning, a colourful spectacle that makes a souvenir picture for countless tourists recording the historic sights of the capital. Tower Bridge, a fairy tale structure across the River Thames, overlooks another tourist favourite, the Tower of London. The tower has been a palace, a fortress and a prison in its turbulent history dating from 1078. Inside are the picturesque homes of the yeoman warders of the tower, originally appointed by King Edward VI. They're the quaintly named Beefeaters, a name which may have been derived from their fondness for roast beef. What tales they have to tell of murders and executions in the infamous tower. The city, finance houses making one of the world's great money markets, and the House of God, St. Paul's Cathedral, the 17th century masterpiece of Sir Christopher Wren. Everyday life in London is a rich tapestry. The pavement cafes, the pubs serving traditional beers, Covent Garden, once a famous fruit and vegetable market, now a setting for street theatre. They all bring pleasure, laughter and relaxation to the streets of London town. From the capital city, let's go to a faraway corner of southwest England, the wild, rugged coast of Tintagel in Cornwall. This is Camelot country, where legend has it King Arthur was born. The ruins of the 12th century castle enhance the spectacular scenery. England enjoys a coastline of infinite variety. This is Port Isaac, perched on a cliff top, a fishing village that has earned a living from the sea for centuries. The little harbour with its boats nestles at the foot of sharp slopes leading to cosy Cornish cottages. The salty tang of shellfish is in the air. It's a place where seafarers feel comfortable. The coast is Cornwall's glory, but stormy seas are no respecter of persons, be they sailors or smugglers. Till the 19th century, smuggling and fishing were Polperro's main sources of income. The little fishing harbour makes Polperro one of England's most memorable villages. It's long been a powerful magnet for tourists who like the old world atmosphere and the fishermen's pubs where stories are told of shipwrecks and heroic deeds in times of tempest. In neighbouring Devon is Clovelly's 14th century harbour. Time stands still in this picture postcard village with its cobbled main street. Whitewashed cottages, bright with flowers, seem to tumble over one another on the steep path to the sea. In Devon's lush green countryside, the pace of life is slower than in the towns. The people who live here have time to pause and reflect, and they're all the better for it. The English have a strong sense of history. This is Morwellham Quay near Tavistock, today a fascinating outdoor museum of industrial archaeology. It recreates the period around 1868 when there was a bustling community and thriving river port here. Morwellham Quay was at the peak of its prosperity. People made fortunes from the local copper mine and the docks had a busy trade exporting the ore. The harbour decayed after the closure of the mine, but its days of glory are relived for the benefit of tourists. The staff in period costume act out their scenes with a sense of realism. Social history takes on a new and more vivid meaning thanks to museums like this one, and has brought renewed prosperity to this corner of Devon. No detail is overlooked. The making of casks, once used to ship the ore to South Wales, is demonstrated to visitors. The water wheel, part of the process of grinding manganese ore, is turning once again as interest grows in England's industrial heritage. Buckfast Abbey, a living Benedictine monastery restored by monks, has a history stretching back 1,000 years. Totnes Castle is a mere 600 years old. The harbour is Brixham's focal point. For hundreds of years it was England's major fishing port. Its most eye-catching boat is a full-size replica of the Golden Hind, a ship in which Sir Francis Drake sailed round the world in the 16th century. Torbay is one of the country's most popular areas for seaside holidays, with moorings for hundreds of yachts. Flowers and plants flourish in the mild climate, which has a hint of the Mediterranean. No village is more typically English than Cockington, where the only taxis are horse-drawn carriages. To preserve its character, buses are banned and the horse is king. The old thatched village puts on its best face these days. In its 1,000 years, it's seen hard times. In 1279, the lord of the manor was granted the power of inflicting the death sentence on wrongdoers. These are gentler times devoted to entertaining holidaymakers. Nowadays, if anyone is put in the village stocks, it's for fun. It's hard to imagine this rural community is only a quarter of a mile from the coast in the seaside resort of Torquay. Success is due to its determination to live in the past, capitalizing on its old world charm. Travelling north to Exeter, the city has a history stretching back to Roman times. Its cheerful facade exudes prosperity, though it suffered cruelly from German bombs in World War II. Exeter Cathedral, with its Norman towers, is the most notable legacy of the past. And today it's a city that still takes pride in its appearance, with a maritime museum bringing new vigour to the waterfront. Once, canals were important for transporting cargo. A horse still pulls a barge on an 11-mile stretch of the Grand Western Canal at Tiverton. Now it's for the benefit of sightseers. Moving to the county of Somerset, the variety of the scenery casts its spell. Cheddar Gorge is among the most dramatic. The famous limestone cliffs tower 380 feet above the winding road. The cliffs are made up of marine life that died millions of years ago. The gorge formed, it's thought, by a melting ice cap during the Ice Age. The result, quite a spectacle for the motorist. Not far away, the oldest complete street in Europe. The houses in Wells were built in 1360. The city's swans are almost as famous. The moat was dug by a bishop for his protection after a quarrel. The cathedral is a fine example of medieval sculpture. For sheer grace and elegance, there are few towns to equal Bath. Decorated with flowers and possessor of fine architecture, it has one of the country's greatest planned townscapes. Although a Celtic and a Roman watering place, Bath is a true 18th century city. A local postmaster financed the building of squares and crescents with their stylish stone terraces and long vistas. In the Pump Room, visitors gathered to taste the waters in England's most fashionable spa town. From Roman days, Bath was noted for its local warm springs. The Roman baths were lost to view for centuries. The Great Bath was only rediscovered in 1878. Set on the River Avon, Bath uses its water to good effect. Dancing fountains add to the splendour of the street scene, which is also brightened by the city's renowned floral displays. In the adjoining county of Wiltshire is Avebury, where strange stones point heavenwards. These are prehistoric monuments, and this small village has more than any other in the country. The stones date from the 2nd millennium BC. Visitors wander around the village, no doubt pondering the religious significance of the hallowed stones. Stonehenge, set in the middle of Salisbury Plain, is the finest Bronze Age circle of standing stones in Europe, a mighty temple of a bygone age. Imagine the immense task of erecting these massive stones as a ritual monument, a stone circle probably linked to important events such as the summer solstice. Breathtaking in a different way is the 11th century Arundel Castle in Sussex, ancestral home of the Dukes of Norfolk. The great castle remains an architectural treasure. Tunbridge Wells in the nearby county of Kent is one of those graceful, spacious towns which raised the quality of English life. It became popular in the 17th century when its spas matched continental resorts. Its spring waters had the reputation of curing all manner of ailments. Spa therapy became a thriving industry. The prosperity of Tunbridge Wells was assured. In England's green and pleasant land stands Bodiam Castle, built in the 14th century against the threat of French invasion. The neighbouring towns of Rye and Winchelsea had been attacked, but Bodiam never was besieged, so it survived practically unchanged, a textbook castle. The story of Leeds Castle near Maidstone repeats the history of England itself, romantic, eventful, sensational. On an island in a lake, it's called the loveliest castle in the world. The banqueting hall runs the length of 75 feet on the western side of the castle. Flemish tapestries in the hall date from the turn of the 15th and 16th centuries. Canterbury is England's premier cathedral city. Chaucer wrote in Canterbury Tales, "From every shire's end of England to Canterbury they wend." The murder of Archbishop Thomas Becket in the cathedral in 1170 started the tradition of pilgrimage. Fine buildings from the medieval period can be found round every corner, though much of the city's heritage is a result of the Norman invasion. But the focal point of the city remains the cathedral, with its impressive architecture, fine stained glass and intricate carvings. Royal Windsor, home and burial place of English kings and queens for 900 years. Seen for the first time, Windsor Castle is an unforgettable sight, a mirage of towers, battlements and pinnacles, a spectacular skyline. Windsor has many royal legacies. Queen Victoria's statue commemorates the 50th anniversary of her reign. For a town of only 30,000 people, Windsor has a wide range of specialist shops. Hampton Court Palace was given to King Henry VIII, the lusty monarch who had 6 wives. It was planned as the finest and most extravagant palace in Europe. For centuries, Oxford has been famous as a seat of learning. It ranks in importance with Athens, Rome and Paris. Yet it's more than a university town and architectural showpiece. It's also a commercial and industrial city, a combination that makes it one of the most fascinating places in the world. The poet Matthew Arnold wrote of the dreaming spires of Oxford, and the city's skyline continues to delight the eye. The almost indefinable spirit of the place takes hold of visitors and scholars alike. Many of them return again and again, so strong is its pull. The Sheldonian Theatre was designed by Christopher Wren. It was his first large-scale work and was opened with great pomp in 1669. The end of the 12th century saw the real beginning of the university. Since then, it's had influence on culture, education, science, and politics everywhere. Relaxing on the river is a traditional pastime of students who master the art of punting when they go to Oxford. Civic pride is reflected in the care of the city. Flowers give colour to the buildings. From an open-top bus, visitors can enjoy the recently restored stonework of colleges and university buildings, resulting in a honey-coloured facade. Oxford isn't just a shrine to the past, it's an academic powerhouse. Its historic buildings are the homes of some of the world's finest brains. The scholarly atmosphere of the magnificent colleges and the time-honoured tradition are an intrinsic part of the city's charm. In the heart of England are the rolling hills of the Cotswolds. This haven of peace is an area of outstanding natural beauty. Houses built of stone quarried locally add to the character. From the hills beyond to small towns like Burford, a delightful spot which has preserved the best of the past for the pleasure of today's visitors. The stocks where offenders sat in shame are still preserved in some villages. There are places in England far from the madding crowd, pastoral scenes to be enjoyed. Bourton-on-the-water has emerged as the main centre in the North Cotswolds. And this is the village in miniature, an exact replica of Bourton, which was opened in 1937 to mark the coronation of King George VI. The model village was 5 years in the making. 12 months to measure its 46 houses and another 4 years to build them to scale. It was done as a hobby. Now it's a major local attraction. Stratford upon Avon is the birthplace of William Shakespeare. The River Avon is a beautiful waterway, and even without the lure of the bard, Stratford would be an outstanding town in its own right. The Royal Shakespeare Theatre was opened in 1932 as an international memorial to the world's most famous dramatist. He was born in this house in 1564. Shakespearean actors perform his works at the Swan Theatre, and theatregoers have the opportunity to rub shoulders with thespians in the Dirty Duck pub. The whole town with its timber frame buildings forms a natural backcloth to Shakespeare, his times and work. This fine Tudor house, where the poet's daughter Susanna lived, is one of the properties preserved as a national memorial. It's typically English, and it's become a flourishing business. Honouring Shakespeare is a profitable local industry. Warwick Castle is just 8 miles from Stratford upon Avon. It's a medieval castle of great beauty and rare quality, containing an outstanding collection of arms and armour. Travelling east to Cambridge, the unforgettable view of King's College and its magnificent Gothic chapel. The city owes its fame and prosperity to its 13th century university. The River Cam winds its elegant way through the heart of Cambridge. Boating is a tradition that has thrived for hundreds of years. The romance of the river casts its spell on many young couples. A warm summer's day, the lazy ripple of water, and thoughts turn to proposal of marriage. Spectators sense the mood. The tranquility of the waterway contrasts with the bustle of the streets. Cambridge attracts 4 million visitors a year from all over the world, a city for all seasons and all sorts of people. Cambridge's splendour comes from the architectural magnificence of its university buildings, and the colleges, more than 30 of them, have an enviable reputation for intellectual achievement. Sightseers pass St. John's College, its fine entrance guaranteed to draw admiring glances. The gate tower of red brick, dressed with stone, is superbly decorated. Once a centre of learning only for the rich and the privileged, now it's open to all who can pass the examinations. Not far away is the city of Ely. Its skyline is dominated by its cathedral dating from 1083. The cathedral in the centre of a fertile farming area is being fully restored. Aldborough on the Suffolk coast has been a fishing port since the Middle Ages, withstanding the onslaught of the sea that has swept away some houses. It's also the home of a music festival founded by composer Benjamin Britten. Southwold is a stylish seaside resort with 6 cannons on the town green. In the 17th century, the town needed protection from the French. Today, its lighthouse and Georgian houses delight visitors. Moving inland, Woodbridge is an attractive town going back to Saxon times. Its old town pump is a pleasing relic of the past. Nearby, Orford Castle was built by King Henry II in 1165 to control the prosperous and independent-spirited East Anglians. But Orford went into decline. Nowadays, the cannon's firepower isn't needed, though young children sometimes find other uses for the sturdy old gun. Framlingham Castle, another 12th century attraction in Suffolk. Flatford Mill, immortalised by the artist John Constable, who painted here. Windmills grace the landscape. Suffolk is a county of stunning old houses, sleepy villages, and places of character that please the eye. The timber-frame buildings, colour-washed, ornately decorated and carved, reveal riches of the past earned in the heyday of the wool trade. The English, said Napoleon, are a nation of shopkeepers. They are, in fact, a nation of gardeners. These gardens at Bressingham in Norfolk are a public attraction. The owner, Alan Bloom, is also a steam locomotive enthusiast and runs his own museum. There's nostalgia for the age of steam, a golden era for the railways. So when a steam train chugs by, it's quite an exciting event for both young and old. Somerleyton Hall, an early 19th century mansion on which no expense was spared. It's the home of the aristocrat Lord Somerleyton. take a car ride to the capital of Norfolk, Norwich. The river filled with pleasure craft is an important artery in the life of the city, which can trace its existence back 1,000 years to the time when it was a Saxon settlement. Bishop Bridge still stands after 700 years. The waterways were once used for building Norwich's illustrious cathedral. Norwich, a fine city, they call it. The cathedral, started in 1096 and almost completely Norman with medieval additions, is Norwich's greatest architectural treasure. Clusters of ancient houses are preserved in the heart of the city. Flower sellers have stalls in the marketplace where Regency dandies once ordered blooms for their sweethearts. Across the market square on the horizon is the Norman Castle, today a museum. Norwich can tell of great plagues, the peasants' revolt of 1549, public hangings, the stuff of history. Linked to Norwich are the Norfolk Broads, unique waterways that have no equal in Europe. Water has a special magic, no more so than the natural setting of the lakes. Dug by man to get peat for fuel in the 13th century and flooded by the rising sea, the Broads are connected by rivers. The result is a holiday playground with 200 miles of navigable water. It's an idyllic spot, a place to commune with nature along winding rivers among some of the most beautiful countryside in England. The government has given it the status of a national park. The best way to see the Broads, of course, is by boat. Though in high season they've become among the busiest waterways in Britain. But for many, this is still paradise, especially for those who prefer the exhilaration of sailing boats. The Broads are the home of that most ancient of country industries, thatching. Some still harvest the reed beds by hand. They say the finest Norfolk reed is the best in the world. Methods vary from medieval to modern, but the product is just the same. The demand for thatching reed outstrips the supply. Thatched cottages are many people's dream homes. In the drier eastern counties, a reed roof will give good service for up to 80 years. The North Norfolk coast is the haunt of sailors, fishermen and birdwatchers. Blakeney, with its attractive harbour, has become a fashionable holiday village. Its cottages, built of rounded flintstones, add to the scenic quality of the heritage coastline. Wells next the sea, with its narrow streets to the harbour, also has a salty nautical flavour. Tucked away in the countryside are little craft centres and antique shops to interest collectors during the summer season. The buildings and barns of this part of Norfolk are being preserved with loving care. Some are converted into shops and homes. Holt, a busy little inland town, has kept the traditional look of the area. Admiral Lord Nelson, who defeated Napoleon in the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, was born nearby at Burnham Thorpe. He remains a hero in the village where his father was rector. In coastal pubs, people still gather to sing seafaring songs.
Fish of the sea, come all you young sailormen and listen to me. In this windy old weather, stormy old weather, and when the wind blows, we'll all pull together. Well, first comes the heron, the king of the seas, says you throw a line and I'll throw you a breeze. In this windy old weather, stormy old weather.
The ancient fisher fleet at King's Lynn, from where fishermen have sailed for 1,000 years to gather cockles, mussels and shrimps. The fishermen are a hardy breed. For them, it's a way of life.
and it's windy old weather, stormy old weather, and when the wind blows we'll all pull together. And then comes the whale, he's the biggest of all, says throw me a line and I'll throw you a squall on this windy old weather, stormy old weather, and when the wind blows we'll all pull together. This windy old weather, stormy old weather.
Houghton Hall, one of the finest examples of Palladian architecture in England, was built in the 18th century for Sir Robert Walpole, the country's first Prime Minister. Now it's the home of the Marquess and Marchioness of Cholmondeley. Various breeds of heavy horses are shown at the mansion's stables. The setting for these powerful animals is, to say the least, unusual. Fox hunting has been a popular pursuit for centuries in these parts. The West Norfolk hunt is one of the oldest in the country. Holcombe Hall, another Palladian mansion in the grand manor, is the Norfolk home of the Earls of Leicester. The Marble Hall is Holcombe's most famous feature. The magnificence of this entrance hall takes visitors completely by surprise. So much effort went into the house that it took 30 years to build. The carved facade of the Merengue organ, one of a number that entertain visitors at Thursford Organ Museum. The organs provide a spectacular show. The museum's founder, George Cushing, also has a fine collection of steam traction engines. He's received an award from the Queen for his work in preserving relics of the steam age. There's no doubt about it, for George it's been a labour of love. Lavender, which dates from Roman times, is the district's most colourful crop. Its oil is used in perfumes. The east of England is a rich farming area and the fruits of the fields are abundant. Each summer, hundreds of recruits help to gather in the strawberries. There's no shortage of willing hands to harvest the juicy fruit. Down leafy country lanes, Romany gypsy caravans make their way. Gypsies often work on farms at peak periods. The peddler on Swaffham town sign is a local legend. After dreaming of finding treasure, he dug up 2 pots of gold in his garden. People still hope to find treasures on the market each Saturday. It's famous for its bargains and it's a good day out, though no one has yet discovered a fortune. But each week, the ancient market breathes life into Swaffham. King's Lynn Tuesday Market is another vigorous institution dating back 750 years.
They're cheap, but they're good. Cauliflower Cyril, please. 12p each today.
The town's prosperity is based on its role as a market centre for the surrounding farming community and on its port, which has traded for 1,000 years.
They're cheap, but they're good.
Country folk and townspeople mingle in the market square seeking fresh produce. The scene is enlivened by the market trader's wit.
I can't swear while you're here, can I? One down there, ladies and gentlemen, 18p, 6 cups, 6 saucers, 6 side plates. English, eggshell, bone china. Got made in Hong Kong, the Taiwan, the ping pong, the gone wrong.
The Trinity Guildhall, with its striking checkered flint and stone front, holds the town's treasures in its 15th century vaults, the Regalia Rooms. The magnificent collection includes the famous King John Loving Cup. Tradition says the cup was among the treasures lost by King John when his wagon train sank in the mud and was trapped by the incoming sea on the east coast in 1216. In fact, the enamelled silver gilt cup was made a century later, but it's the earliest surviving piece of English medieval secular plate. Nearby is the Sandringham Royal Estate, the Queen's private country home. The wrought iron gates were made in 1862 for the Great Exhibition in London, and then given as a wedding present to the Prince of Wales, who became King Edward VII. "Dear old Sandringham, the place I love more than anywhere else in the world," wrote King George V. The present Queen shares her grandfather's affection for this lovely country retreat, a pretty corner of England embracing 7 peaceful villages. The parish church of St. Mary Magdalene has a wealth of glowing colours. Much of the rich decoration is in memory of King Edward VII. The solid silver altar and reredos were presented by Queen Alexandra in 1911 by an American friend, Rodman Wanamaker. The ornate gold and silver of the tiny church makes it unique. It's a special day at Sandringham. Queen Elizabeth and other members of the royal family are staying there. They join estate workers at church for morning service. The Queen and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, pause for a chat at the front gate. There are flowers for both of them from waiting children. Posies gathered from local gardens delight the royal visitors. It's relaxed and informal, a pleasant interlude before Sunday lunch. Prince Charles and Princess Anne wait patiently as the seemingly endless stream of well-wishers hand over their bunches of flowers. The royal family take the time to have a word with handicapped visitors from a nearby holiday hotel for the disabled. Princess Anne hopes they're not too cold on the chilly winter day. The Queen has a laugh and a joke. For the wheelchair visitors, it's an unforgettable occasion. The Queen Mother brightens their day with a few cheerful words before waving them goodbye. Travelling westward, this is King John's treasure chest that he left at Rockingham Castle. Other royal relics include Queen Elizabeth I's charter and Great Seal, granting the right to hold a market. Rockingham in Northamptonshire was built for William the Conqueror. In 1530, Henry VIII gave it to Edward Watson, and the Watson family still lives here. The author Charles Dickens produced and acted in plays at the castle. High on a hill over the Vale of Belvoir in Leicestershire is Belvoir Castle, which is associated with many of the bloodier episodes in English history. The Wars of the Roses, a plot to kill Queen Elizabeth I, and a 4-month siege during the Civil War. The present castle was built in 1816, though there's been one on this site since the 11th century. Belvoir, the home of the 10th Duke and Duchess of Rutland, has provided a magnificent location for such films as Young Sherlock Holmes and Little Lord Fauntleroy. The picture gallery has many fine paintings. King Henry VIII, captured with all his weight and majesty by Holbein, is one of the best portraits. His reign of nearly 30 years was a memorable period in English history. Perhaps the grandest room in the castle is Elizabeth's saloon, with its superbly painted ceiling. The decoration is breathtaking. Figures of Jupiter, Juno, and Mercury fight their mythological battles watched by Venus and Cupid. A spectacular ceiling in a castle that owes much to the inspiration of Elizabeth, 5th Duchess of Rutland. Indeed, a house of riches, the silver punch bowl weighs nearly 2,000 ounces. The lush green countryside of Nottinghamshire, the epitome of England. It's the home of the legendary Robin Hood, who robbed the rich barons of the 13th century to give to the poor. The tales of Robin Hood live on, drawing visitors to the land where the peasant's hero of merry old England pitted his wits against the sheriff of Nottingham. Secluded villages and Nottinghamshire's strong sense of rural history contrast with its reputation as an industrial heartland. But its rolling landscape and rich folklore, its myths and fables, are among the very best in the country. Morris dancing flourishes in a county where old traditions are still very much alive. Celebration of spring and the new growing season is marked by the crowning of the May Queen. There's a rose-growing tradition that goes back a century and a half in the county. Indeed, Nottingham claims to have invented formal and elegant roses. These beautiful blooms are sought after all over the world. But it's this colourful character who's to be found everywhere. Robin Hood's statue stands below the ramparts of Nottingham Castle, the stronghold of the sheriff whose life he made such a misery. The man who used his bow and arrow to such good effect won't ever be forgotten. Sherwood Forest, where Robin Hood and his merry men took refuge, is now a visitor's centre. The massive major oak, 1,000 years old, would have made a perfect hiding place. Today, the life and times of the outlaws are relived in the forest, where they rode by day through leafy glades and dined well each night on the king's venison. The exploits of the knights of old have been turned into 20th century spectacle. A modern medieval banquet offers all the fun and joviality of Robin Hood's time with rather better food and drink. It's a much more civilized existence these days for those who fancy the role of Little John or his companions Will Scarlet and Maid Marian. Things weren't so rosy for the 6th Lord Byron, destined to become one of England's greatest poets. When he inherited Newstead Abbey in 1798, he was 10 years old and the abbey was derelict. Visitors to the park can well understand why Byron, though poverty-stricken, so loved the place. But he was forced to sell the house in 1817. Restored to its former glory, it contains relics of Byron's day. Literary pilgrims come from all over the world to see the county where he grew up and his beloved abbey. Another literary giant, D.H. Lawrence, was born in far more humble circumstances in the coal mining village of Eastwood in 1885. Now the village's most famous son, at one time Lawrence's novel Lady Chatterley's Lover brought him notoriety. At the local churchyard, the family's memorial records sadly that the great man lies elsewhere. Lawrence died in 1930 in the south of France. Though his body was buried at Vence, his spirit belongs to Eastwood. The countryside immortalized by Lawrence is full of surprising touches. The small town of Southwell, dreaming in peaceful seclusion, has its secrets. First grown here, the famous Bramley apple. But Southwell Minster, called the Unknown Cathedral, is its greatest glory. What distinguishes Southwell Minster is its carving. In the octagonal chapter house, stonemasons created one of the wonders of Britain. The foliage and animals are a fine example of the carver's art. After 700 years, the intricate figures etched in stone are lasting testimony to the mason's skills. The old pagan custom of well dressing is still observed in some English shires. Each Ascension Day, the wells are decorated with pictures made of flower petals. In well-drained limestone areas, drought was always a threat in summer, so the water spirits had to be appeased. What better way of keeping the spirits in good humor than offering pictures as pretty as this? Today, they still add to the color of country life. Religious history was made in Nottingham, birthplace of William Booth, who founded the Salvation Army. The terraced home of the fiery, passionate preacher is now open to the public. Nottinghamshire has other claims to fame. The lace industry helped to establish the foundations of the county's prosperity. It began and still continues with handmade lace. Delicate movements of the lace maker's fingers, shifting bobbins in time-honored patterns, produced the highest quality of Nottinghamshire lace. But the ingenuity of engineers found a way to make lace with an iron machine driven by steam. Woollerton Hall was built in 1588, the year of the Armada. Surrounded by a deer park, it celebrates Nottinghamshire's history as the powerhouse of England each year. The engines are retired now, but they can still illustrate the skills of the Victorian pioneers. Papelwick Pumping Station, powered by coal for more than 100 years. Since Elizabethan times, coal has made the county's fortune. The pumping station was built to boost Nottingham's pioneering water supply, England's first high-pressure system, preventing contamination from getting into the water mains. Today it's preserved for those who admire the golden age of steam engineering. And the old machinery is still turning at North Leverton Windmill, grinding corn for local farmers. Flour has been produced since the mill was built in 1813. The sails sweep the sky thanks to supporters who restored the mill. The rushing waters of the River Trent at Newark. Boating on the Trent gives a new perspective on town and country. The river's still a commercial waterway all the way to Nottingham, but is increasingly popular with pleasure boats. The river is a very satisfying way of reaching Newark. The town owes its attraction partly to the flowing Trent and partly to being a busy place. The evangelist John Wesley described Newark as one of the most elegant towns in England. Sitting under the gaze of the spire of the Church of St. Mary Magdalene, the marketplace has a wonderful atmosphere. It's like any other market, except that it's surrounded by 14th century inns and business houses. In the distance, the ruins of the castle are a reminder of how the town refused to submit to Oliver Cromwell in England's Civil War. It withstood 3 sieges. In 1643, Cromwell's men attacked Newark, loyal to the crown, with a force of Scots and English troops. After a fierce battle, the Cromwellian troops withdrew. It took another 3 years of siege and fighting before Newark was finally forced to surrender. From the battlefield to the tranquility of Alton Towers in North Staffordshire. It was in 1812 that the task of laying out the great gardens of Alton was begun by Charles, the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury. Lords and ladies came to see the gardens, which to this day are claimed to be the most magnificent in the British Isles. Set in the beauty of yesteryear, Alton Towers today operates as a leisure park. To surprise his guests, the Earl erected exotic follies, including this pagoda fountain. The Derbyshire Dales, a place that people turn to for inspiration and recreation, an area of soft, sylvan beauty. Here at Cromford, Sir Richard Arkwright conceived ideas that were to lead to the Industrial Revolution. He needed transportation from his mills to the sea. His solution was the Cromford Canal. But canals in hilly districts have water problems. So at Leewood, he built a pumping station in grand style. It lay idle and derelict for 40 years till a group of enthusiasts restored it. The work took 8 years. Now the engine runs as smoothly as it ever did. The 33-foot beam can lift 4 tons of water 7 times a minute, feeding the canal from the River Derwent. Today, the canal is open once more, cleared by the same group of dedicated people. The boat moves along a scenic route that is part of England's industrial heritage. 1 horsepower is all it takes, not quite as powerful as the beam engine. Nostalgic rides of a different kind are provided at the National Tramway Museum at Cryche. At the Victorian tram shelter, passengers don't have to wait long. Trams run every 10 minutes. The museum has 35 vehicles dating back to 1873. The rugged grandeur of the Derbyshire Dales lifts the spirits. The wild remoteness spells freedom. This is a place of peace and solitude, with only grazing sheep to disturb the silence. Walkers tread a pathway through the heather, exploring vast open stretches of unspoiled countryside. Few landscapes can equal this green patchwork, and increasing numbers of people have come to appreciate it. Old rail track beds have become bicycle ways to open up the countryside. The Dales are a national park, and rangers point out sights along the way. Viaducts are reminders of the railway age, spanning valleys where beauty sums up the magnificence of the Dales. Imagine being a mill worker from the grimy new cities of the Industrial Revolution earlier in this century. Picture yourself waiting for a rare and longed-for holiday here. You'll begin to understand the affection local people have for the Derbyshire Dales. Harnessing the power of water at Caudle's Mill at Roseley continues to this day. The miller still grinds flour for sale locally, using only the energy from the river. As the world strives to become more energy efficient, could it be that water power will make a comeback? In the valley of the River Wye, nestling under wooded green hills, lies the capital of the Peak District, Bakewell. Since Saxon times, it's been known for its iron-rich springs. Bakewell has some fine old buildings whose owners take pride in their gardens. They are cultivated to perfection. The town has a national reputation for its blooms and its confectionery, for Bakewell pudding is a delicacy the English enjoy. Another special attraction is Bakewell's Monday Market, a weekly event since 1330. It's not just the buying and selling that brings people here, but the social occasion. Nearby Haddon Hall was built 600 years ago, the most complete medieval and manorial home in England. The glorious gardens have spilled over to the house. The original banqueting hall is still intact. Deserving of its name is the Long Gallery, stretching 110 feet. The chapel's beamed roof was renewed in 1624. Its chief claim to fame, found under layers of whitewash, are medieval wall paintings. In one, St. Christopher carries the infant child, a little faded, but as lively as the day it was created. A few miles to the south is Winster Village, with its sturdy ancient market hall. It's preserved by the National Trust. They've put it to use as an information centre. The Gay Gordon coach was used regularly on the London to Edinburgh run 150 years ago. Now its destination is Chatsworth. Set on the banks of the River Derwent in the Peak District National Park, there is nowhere quite like Chatsworth. Its grounds, with rolling parklands and views across the surrounding countryside, were laid out by that landscape genius, Capability Brown. It has a natural romantic look that Brown brought into fashion in the 18th century. The house, the home of the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire, grew from small beginnings in 1552, but most of what we see today was the work of the first Duke in the late 17th century, though this, the Oak Room, was a later addition. The chapel has remained unchanged in 300 years. The state dining room ceiling was painted by Antonio Verrio, a grand room designed for display rather than for living in. The ceiling and carved woodwork make a rich background for the furniture and paintings, a room intended to receive kings and queens. The library is part of a burst of building in 1830, but the ceiling of gilded stucco by Edward Goodge, with paintings by Verrio, survives from the first Duke of Devonshire's period, crowning a superb library that contains over 17,000 volumes. Another product of the expansion of 1830 was the great dining room. The first dinner given was for Princess Victoria, then 13 years old. It was the first time she'd eaten with grown-ups. The sixth Duke said that the curved ceiling made him feel as if he were eating in a great truck. The Sculpture Gallery holds a valuable collection of 19th century stone and sculpted figures, a passion of the sixth Duke. This is the Chatsworth Taza, the largest ornamental vase ever made from the local stone called Derbyshire Blue John. The stone's been known for centuries. There are even Blue John vases in the ruins of Pompeii. Working the stone is a great art, requiring patience above all else. In its original state, it has a different kind of beauty. 19th century mining equipment is on display, but it's the rare and splendid Blue John stone caverns themselves that are a source of wonder. At Castleton, guided tours of the caverns are part of a new industry. Boatloads of sightseers journey into the caves that were hollowed out by underground rivers many thousands of years ago. A combination of rain, acid, peaty soil and limestone has formed the honeycomb of caves beneath the hills. Its backdrop of stalactites and stalagmites is a subterranean showpiece in the Derbyshire Dales. Travelling northwestward, ancient Chester has a two-tier shopping system. The rows are raised galleries with shops at first floor level. There's nothing like it anywhere in England. They go back to the 13th century, though Chester began life as a Roman military town. The Romans called it Diva, meaning holy place, after the goddess of the River Dee. The town is conscious of its architectural heritage, especially its 2 miles of city walls dating from Roman days. For generations, poets have written lyrically about the Lake District in Cumbria, none more so than William Wordsworth, who was born here in 1770. He was a man of vision, seeking protection for this area of mysterious lakes, mountains, and quiet, unspoilt valleys. Wordsworth's beloved Lake District is today a national park, just as he had dreamed of. Streams are made for poets. Rocks are for adventurers. Many people are willing to accept the challenge. Rock climbing is an increasingly popular pastime, and this rugged spot is an ideal place to learn the ropes. To the north of Derwent Water, Queen of the Lakes, is Keswick, with its 16th century Moot Hall, an old courthouse in the market square. The town today is a destination for hikers, giving them a chance to check their provisions and stout walking shoes before setting out to explore the surrounding countryside. The rewards are soon to be found, some of the most picturesque landscape in the country, a place of contrasting colours and textures. But it's from the crowning glory of the peaks that the sheer beauty of this region unfolds. Walkers pause at little stopping places, but soon realize there are more sheep than people in the hills. The lakes mirror the changes of the seasons, from sunlight to shade, providing peace and solitude. Sunset creates its own magic over the lapping waters of the lakes. A rainbow stretches over the water. No wonder Wordsworth called it the loveliest spot that man hath ever known. Kendal, situated in the valley of the River Kent, is today, as it was in Wordsworth's time, the principal market town and gateway to the southern Lake District. It's a fine-looking town, once with a woolen industry set up by Flemish weavers that gave it the motto, "Wool is my bread." For 140 years, cruising has been the classic way to see Lake Windermere. It's the largest and best known of all English lakes, extending more than 10 miles almost to the sea. The Lake District was discovered by early travellers 200 years ago. The first steamboat arrived in 1845. There have been pleasure boats ever since. On a sunny day, what better way to relax? Windermere's scenic qualities and natural setting are its main attraction. But some prefer more vigorous sporting pursuits. Wordsworth's country deserves all the eloquent words written about it, though a few murky characters have lived by its shores. 200 years ago, rum and slaves were smuggled into the country by a local titled gentleman. Today, the district owes its success to its lakes, not illicit liquor. The neighbouring ancient kingdom of Northumbria today covers England's four most northern counties. No frontier in the Western world is more impressive than Hadrian's Wall, built almost 2,000 years ago. The Great Wall, stretching 73 miles from east to west, was intended to protect the civilized Roman province of the south from the barbarians of the north. No border town has a more turbulent history than Berwick-upon-Tweed. It changed hands between the Scots and English 13 times during the border wars. Echoes of the battles linger on. An Elizabethan defensive wall still encircles the town. Holy Island, reached at low water by a causeway, once had a Celtic monastery. Still standing sentinel is Lindisfarne Castle, built to repel the Scots. Rising above the sandy bay of Bamborough, the 12th century castle guards the one-time capital of Northumbria that was pillaged by the Danes. Throughout the Middle Ages, the owners of Alnwick Castle occupied an uneasy political position. Committed to defending the border against the Scots, they nonetheless allied themselves with Scottish kings if it suited them. From former battlegrounds to peaceful countryside, Northumbria's dales paint another picture. It's a panorama which has changed little over the centuries in a region that has helped to shape the course of English history. Durham is one of the most visually exciting cities in England. Rising high above the rest of the city on a commanding hilltop is its vast Norman cathedral. The cathedral is the finest example of early Norman architecture in the country, possibly in Europe. Its massive grandeur is enhanced by its lofty site. Sir Walter Scott called it half church of God, half castle against the Scot. The cathedral was begun by Bishop William of Calais in 1093, and the Norman work was finished 40 years later. The building's treasures are more than a collection of precious, interesting and beautiful objects. They give an insight into the beliefs and lives of the people of Durham and their worship over 900 years. A splendidly situated city, Durham's rocky outcrop, washed on three sides by the River Wear, was from the earliest times a secure fortress against invading Scots and Danes. Today, the river serves as a scenic and recreational amenity. Durham is full of pleasing streets and buildings, a mixture that has evolved over the centuries in a city that grew up in the shelter of the towering cathedral. The combination of new and old works well. Well-preserved houses, cobbled streets and civic pride add to the character of Durham. The city's prince bishops, who were lay rulers as well as religious leaders, occupied the castle for nearly 800 years. The bishops ruled Durham as a city-state with unique powers until 1836. Durham could have its own army, nobility, coinage and courts. The Bowes Museum near Barnard Castle houses art of national importance, none more intriguing than its silver swan. The river is made of revolving glass rods from which the mechanical swan plucks a fish. The life-size swan, crafted from silver, is believed to have been the work of a London goldsmith sometime before 1773. It performs twice a day at the museum. The fishing village of Staithes in Yorkshire remains as the explorer Captain James Cook would have known it in 1744. He was apprenticed to a local grocer, but he finally persuaded his family to let him become a sailor. In Whitby, he learned the mariner's trade. The harbour was the birthplace of 3 ships that carried him round the world, including the Endeavour, which Cook landed in Botany Bay, Australia in April 1770. A heritage trail has been laid out to mark his achievements. The Worth Valley leads us into Bronte country, inspiration for novels such as Wuthering Heights, a pinnacle of romanticism in fiction. The 3 Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily and Anne, brought fame to this corner of Yorkshire, an area known for its handloom weaving industry. Mile after mile of awe-inspiring emptiness. But beyond, on the edge of the Pennine Moors, the Brontes came to the village of Haworth in the last century to lift it from obscurity. Within a few decades, the Brontes' priceless legacy of novels, poems and short stories turned it into a major centre for literary pilgrimage. Today, thousands visit the village that so influenced the family's life and works. The Black Bull was the drinking haunt of Branwell, the novelist's brother. The Bronte Museum, furnished with many family relics, is in the old parsonage where the family lived from 1820. The sisters' father, the Reverend Patrick Bronte, was the minister at Haworth, where most of the family are buried in a vault beneath the church. The spirit of the Brontes lives on, and few can leave Haworth and the surrounding countryside without sensing it. Castle Howard in Yorkshire is a stately home on such a scale that critics have said, "'Tis very grand and very fine, but where do ye eat and where do ye dine?" Grandeur comes before comfort, but it's an 18th century palace that graces the landscape. The dome's original decoration by Pellegrini, destroyed by fire, was recreated by the Canadian artist Scott Mead. The history of York, said King George VI, is the history of England. Few would disagree. The Romans built their fortress by the River Ouse, and their influence is felt to the present day in a city that has emerged as one of the finest in Europe. The walls, originally built by the Romans, are the longest and best preserved in the country. Pierced by numerous towers and gates of many different periods, the defences span 20 centuries. Clifford's Tower was built toward the end of the 13th century on the site of a wooden castle that had been there since William the Conqueror's time. History is brought to light in so many ways in the city: the invasion of the Vikings, the grim siege and the Civil War. But no one was more merciless than William the Conqueror, who subdued rebellion by a policy of scorched earth and destruction, causing great poverty. York Minster, one of the marvels of Western architecture. People travel from all over the world to see England's largest Gothic church, restored in the 1980s after the roof collapsed in a disastrous fire. The 13th century cathedral has many glories, its stained glass one of its greatest treasures. It's a lasting monument to the craftsmen who built it 700 years ago. A walk in the narrow streets of York is like a quiet stroll through the Middle Ages, flanked by historic buildings. There's no prettier medieval street in Europe than the Shambles, with its half-timbered buildings and overhanging stories. The British bobby is as traditional as the tea rooms that serve the Englishman's favourite hot brew. The golden age of York was from the middle of the 14th century for 100 years. The city's prosperity was then due to the weaving industry. Minerva, goddess of wisdom, is symbolic of the city father's determination to safeguard York's architecture. The Merchant Adventurers' Hall reflects the wealth and power of its traders through the centuries. Today, York's ageless charm makes it an unusually distinctive and attractive place to live and work. Over the red roofs of the lovely town of Beverley stands the Minster, with its perfectly proportioned western towers. Burton Constable Hall near Hull is an Elizabethan house built around 1570. The staircase hall, one of the largest rooms, has tulip lights on the handrail, a rare survivor from the days of candle lighting. Many of the great halls of England can claim to be haunted. This one has 3 ghosts. One is said to be a former owner, another a nun seen floating down the long gallery, and the third a 19th century nanny who's buried in the family mausoleum. Thornton Abbey was one of the greatest abbeys of eastern England. Now its 14th century gatehouse gazes sadly down on the traveller. Its carved figures on the west front remind us of the abbey's fame until King Henry VIII closed the monasteries. A deer park is very English, and Normanby Hall in Lincolnshire has large free-roaming herds. It's a country park now, and the mansion, dating from 1830, is open to the public. The house, built for the family that once owned Buckingham Palace, is a period showplace. That's John Sheffield, 1st Duke of Buckingham. The house has been altered since his day, but the Sheffield family still lives here, though the hall is now part of the local museum service. Everything is in early 19th century style, from the rich and often sombre colours to the period furniture. Gainsborough Old Hall proves how well the wealthy lived 500 years ago. The vast kitchen is as it was in medieval times, with 2 huge fireplaces ready to roast a whole ox with the help of a system of pulleys and chains. There's even a ghost, the Lady in Grey, and the rafters are just as they were when they rang to the feasting of Richard III. Lincoln is the county's capital and its crowning glory. It's the hub now as it was in Roman times. Within the walls of the 11th century castle stand the courtrooms. Prisoners, once convicted, were held in the castle and taken to the chapel to worship. They stood in individual high-sided locked pews so that they could see the chaplain but not each other. All the chaplain saw was a row of cropped heads. Lincoln Cathedral, begun in 1072, soars over the city. The library, designed by Sir Christopher Wren, contains many rare books. A treasured parchment is one of the 4 surviving originals of Magna Carta. If architecture is the art of enclosing light and air in a shell of stone, then Lincoln Cathedral is one of the world's masterpieces. Add to the visual experience the singing of the choir. The music and the masonry are a fitting accompaniment to the splendor of the windows of England's 3rd largest cathedral. The round window, known as the Bishop's Eye, is a glorious patchwork of medieval glass fragments. Far above the floor of the angel choir, the famous Lincoln imp, the city's symbol, grins down from its lofty, majestic setting. The architecture of Lincoln spans 2,000 years, the good times and the bad times from the Romans to today. But the old buildings have been kept alive, in use, as functional now as when they were built. Shops selling antiques and souvenirs are found mainly in the historic streets that still retain their medieval character despite the influences of the changing centuries. Lincoln now reaps the benefit of preserving the best of the past with its old world appeal and atmosphere. The poet Alfred Lord Tennyson, one of Lincolnshire's famous sons, is commemorated in the city. His books and manuscripts are kept in a special library for scholars to study. The vast collection includes the manuscript of In Memoriam, the poem which made his reputation. Among the priceless relics are letters to and from Tennyson and his family, including one from Queen Victoria. A statue of Tennyson was erected by Lincoln in recognition of one of England's foremost poets. Tennyson was born in Somersby. The countryside around inspired his works. I turn to go, my feet are set, to leave the pleasant fields and farms. They mix in one another's arms to one pure image of regret. Boston Stump, it's called, the medieval lantern tower of St. Botolph's Church, a landmark seen from 20 miles away. Boston's a gracious town that gave its name to the city in Massachusetts after the Pilgrim Fathers sailed to the New World. The Guildhall was used to imprison pilgrims who'd separated from the Church of England. The cells still exist, illustrating the hardships faced by those brave pioneers. They finally made their escape in 1620 and sailed westward to freedom. The room where they were put on trial is now part of local history. So are the town's treasures, silver regalia collected over the centuries. It's a sparkling array of silver plate befitting a town that still places value on civic pride. Boston, steeped in antiquity, was, after all, England's premier port in the 13th century. Possibly the only circular cricket ground in England is at Belton House. The 17th century hall near Grantham is in the care of the National Trust. Doddington Hall, an Elizabethan mansion set in romantic gardens, has contents reflecting 400 years of unbroken occupation. Tattershall Castle was built in 1440 in the Lincolnshire Wolds. Today only the massive 5-storey keep remains on the skyline. The whole region expresses the respect for the past that is a hallmark of English country life, and it's in the middle of some of the loveliest landscapes you could ever wish to explore. The Red Lion Hotel at Redbourne is haunted by the ghost of Nell Gwynn, mistress of King Charles II. Incorporated as an extra attraction is the old fire station. The fire has gone out in the village smithy too, but the stocks look as though they might still be in working order in the street. Fox hunting goes back hundreds of years in these parts. Tally-ho! The hunt moves off for a day's sport in the rolling hills of the Lincolnshire Wolds. Travelling southward, Crowland attracts historians for what's left of its abbey, founded in the 8th century in homage to St. Guthlac. After a wild early life, he devoted himself to religion in this once remote and swampy land. Crowland's triangular bridge has been called the greatest curiosity in Europe. Consisting of 3 14th century arches, the bridge originally spanned 3 streams. Stone quarried locally to build Stamford has made it one of England's most attractive towns and the first to be designated a conservation area. Just outside Stamford is one of the grandest Elizabethan mansions, Burghley House. The house was built from local limestone by the first Lord Burghley. Many kings and queens have stayed here, among them Queen Elizabeth I. The Heaven Room, decorated with scenes from ancient mythology, is regarded as Verrio's greatest work. The reunion of Cupid and Psyche is also Verrio's, but it's the sheer scale of his painting in the Heaven Room, the perspective so deceiving, that creates an astounding 3-dimensional effect. This ceiling greeted Queen Victoria and Prince Albert when they occupied the great staterooms at Burghley, and how lavishly they were entertained, judging from the kitchen's array of 260 copper utensils. The fertile farmland around Spalding is the heart of Britain's bulb industry. Producers joined forces to create Springfield's Gardens, a showplace painted with crimsons, yellows, pinks, a host of vivid colours. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, visits Springfields to see a dazzling display of tulips. She's noted for her expert knowledge of gardening. What better way of picking up new ideas for her gardens at Clarence House in London and sharing the pleasure of the occasion with a crowd of admirers. Each May, Spalding stages a spectacular flower parade. These colourful characters are decorated with millions of tulip heads that are a waste product of the bulb industry. The superb designs of the floats have made it an international event, a great day for the flower parade queen and for the tens of thousands who line the 5-mile route. 100 miles away in London, a crown of spring flowers from Lincolnshire heads for Buckingham Palace. It's a special day when children greet the Queen. The Duke and Duchess of York join in the celebrations from the balcony of the palace. The trees turn to gold as our journey ends in a country that draws strength from its deep roots, a nation proud of its rich heritage, its historic settings and ancient customs. You have discovered England.